Thank you for being here. I want to thank David for having me here at the Creative Mornings. I think this is a great concept for creators to network with each other, great concept for understanding the thought process of another artist, and then also a great process of having new artists who's thinking of being an artist and listening to the process and the stories and the journeys what artists go through, and hopefully we develop a brand new artist specimen out here in the world. So my name is James. I am a visual artist. I was born and raised here in Miami. I spent most of my time in Miami, but I went off to Detroit, Michigan for college. And then also from there, I moved to Chicago, Illinois, as a freelance artist. And then I venture out back here in Miami, and I'm currently residing here. So this image here is an image of me in elementary. This actually was my first tackle at doing a art piece for a class project. And my teacher happened to pull me out of class and talk to me and see if I can decorate the door. Now, the whole entire school was decorating their doors, and I guess I was the only one that did drawings. Everyone else did props that stick out, if you look back there, that stick out in front of the doors. Those are the ones that won. Mine didn't. But my teacher was so proud of me, she decided to take a photo of me with my art, in front of my art. I was so shy and embarrassed, I was like, oh, whatever. But from there, I guess I started to notice that I was liking art, and I wanted to do it more. But my Haitian parents did it. My parents, I love my parents. It was a great upbringing. My parents are from Port-de-Paix, Haiti, which is the north part of Haiti. They eventually migrated here to the United States in their 20s and raised 3 wonderful boys. But my parents grew up very conservative. I grew up in a conservative household, and my parents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. By the time I got to age 10, they gave up on that notion, and they support me however they can, so I can continue doing art. So in Miami, there's still some schools that have the magnet program. The magnet program is a program for a lot of young, inspiring artists who want to become artists in the future. I help them train on their particular field. So with the magnet program, there's painting, there's drawing, at the time, sculpture and ceramic. Currently, they introduce graphic design with the program. But back then, we did not have a graphic design program. So my focus was visual communication and design. And then at this time, that's when I noticed my skills. They start to develop a little bit more, and I started having an understanding of the art world. In this photo, I think I'm between 8 or 10 years old. I was giving the project to do a mural, a 3-panel mural. The theme was Caribbean lifestyle, Caribbean life. And I was too young to understand what was Caribbean island and the vibe and everything. So I just went off of photos or videos, and I guess my sketches was great. The teacher decided to put me in charge of the project. There's a group of 4 kids, and I was the only one that was doing the painting. Most of the kids just watched. So at this time, I started to understand composition. I didn't know the word, but I understood composition. I knew how to line up wording nicely. I knew how to place images in a way that if you were see the image in the foreground, the image is a lot bigger versus the images in the background. I knew that early on. But I didn't understand foreground, middle ground, and background. So I continue on with the magnet program to high school. By the time I was in high school, South Miami Senior High, my focus was more on visual communication and fine art and design, where I excelled in the form of doing drawings, painting, sculpture, and then at that time, graphic design was introduced. So we had the big old bulky computers trying to do graphic design work. And that part was fun, but I was more geared to the paintings and drawing. My last 2 years, my work has evolved so much that my last 2 years, I was awarded a National Scholastic Award. That award is to honor gifted students versus whatever field you're in, dance, music, arts. You were acknowledged, you're recognized nationally. You have a variety of pieces in your portfolio where you submit, and then they select the nominees, and then from there they select the finalists. And so the last 2 years of my high school career was really great for me. With that award, it gave me a scholarship so I can pursue in college. So from high school, went off to College of Creative Studies, formerly known as Center for Creative Studies by the time I got there. I didn't know anything about this school. This school is in Detroit, Michigan. Only school I knew were in New York, Maryland Institute, and Ringling. CCS was a very small campus, the heart of Detroit. They mainly focused on car design. That was their main subject. But my focus at the school was illustration, and I minored in fine art. Now, illustration, I was pushed into illustration. They looked at my portfolio, they evaluated, and they made a decision for me that I should go towards illustration. But a little part of me loved painting, a little part of me loved the drawing, a little part of me still loved doing sculpture. So throughout the whole school years, we basically live, work, and play on the campus doing art. I gained understanding of visual communication and also little communication. When you're working with illustration, there's sometimes that you have to read on the periodical or the book so that you come up with your concepts, your ideas, so that you can illustrate it. And once that illustration is, illustrated, it's up to the audience to look at the message, engage it however they want. So this school was amazing. I mean, they even had a building that looks like a Lego. So it was fun. It was a lot of things that went on in the school, and I had a great time. I spent 5 years there. I was supposed to do 4, but since I minored in fine arts, I decided to do an extra year. From the CCS, I stayed a little bit in Detroit. At the time, Detroit wasn't a place for a creator to grow, but it was a place for creators to flourish. What I mean about that is Detroit was a place where we had a variety of creators, from dance to music, photography, and we all just basically hung out with each other. Hang out, support each other. If we had a show, we would support each other in that way. If we had a process while we were working on our project that we needed assistance, we would help each other that way. I love Detroit. Right now, Detroit is going through an emergence of just a bunch of creators, and it's flourishing just rapidly, and I really appreciate that. While I was in school, I was taught the law of visual communication. Now, It was strange that they would teach me laws on visual communication, but in the same token, they also taught me, once you learn all the basic stuff, once you learn your tools, then when it's time to create on your own, drop all that you learned and just let your artistic skills flourish. Because some skills required like extra focus, some skill required extra practice, and then there's others that where it just naturally comes in you. And then the more you practice at it, the more you get better at it, and the more you can like break the rules and create something of your own. Now, while I was in school, the basic elements that they were teaching me, the basic elements in design that they were teaching me were line, shape, color, scale, form, and etc. My main focus at the time, shapes and color was my main focus. The reason for that, color, I felt that color draws a lot of attention to the audience, and it also creates a mood or emotion on what particular color that you use on your project or your clothing or even your house. Colors do set some sort of emotion, and I knew about that. And so that was one of my focus. And shape, shape you can manipulate it in different ways. And I knew that, especially when I was working, trying to combine geometric shape with organic shape, which is really difficult. But when it comes to basic understanding of graphic design or basic understanding of just visual communication, that you can manipulate your shapes. You can overlay them. You can cut them in parts. You can stretch it. All that, it just dove right inside. And I realized that I can not only just do it in a two-dimensional format, but I also can do it in a three-dimensional format. And so while I was in school, I was doing painting, but I was doing printmaking. I was doing sculpture, and I really enjoyed that. And that kind of like pushed me closer to fine art. And then I was pushing away illustration. For some strange reason, just the challenges of the fine art world pleased me more versus the illustration world where you're kind of under control. You always have to go with the client and their needs. So at CCS, I learned how to use the tools, the resources, and then also the verbal communication and merge them together to form an actual art piece. And then while I was doing that, I was still going through the dilemma between illustration and fine art. In undergrad, they really trying to have you focus on one field. Where for me, I always challenge myself. I always try to push my ideas, always trying to come up with some new ideas. I'm always trying to challenge my painting application. I'm always trying to challenge how I lay things in a format. I was constantly challenging myself. And then I felt that illustration wasn't really doing that for me. Illustration, if anyone here are familiar with illustration, you'll see illustration on magazines, at the time, newspapers, books, to packaging, to product, all sorts of places. But then when doing illustration, it's not really your idea. You're basically taking an idea from your client, you're evaluating the concept, you try to figure out in a way to visually communicate your client's idea, and then make an art piece so that that client can publish it and use it as a tool to advertise, to create a message, to pass on a message, and so on. Illustration is basically a commercial-based type stuff. Fine art, a lot of freedom. Fine art, I love the freedom that it provided. It also gave me a freedom to come up with different ideas. And how can I construct those ideas? And what resources I have with me so that I can push along my ideas. But with the fine art, I still wasn't fully understanding the story I wanted to tell. I knew how to do art. I knew how to paint. I knew how to draw. I knew how to do sculpture. But when it came down to the content, wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I should base it off of my past experience, family experience, or wasn't sure, base it off in a group setting, more of a community-based type idea. And I wasn't sure if I even wanted to take something that the public are used to and then create something from that. I just knew that I love art and I want to continue doing art. So after school, I really narrowed down my artwork and the ideas of my artwork to two categories: objective art versus subjective art. Objective art, representation of mutual feelings, opinions, or factual information. Subjective art, representation of a personal experience, your own opinions, and moments of your life. And so I basically geared every single work on how can I pass on my vision in these two categories. Now, what I noticed as I was doing more illustration projects, and I was getting more into the fields, that a lot of the pieces that I was doing was more on the objective side of things. And it kind of seems a little boring if you're an artist when you're creating a piece and it doesn't relate to you at all. It's the hardest thing ever to deal with, especially if you're a type of artist that constantly pushing yourself. So I decide, man, let me slowly go the subjective route. I'll have more freedom. I'll have more energy in that route. So I moved to Chicago. I did freelance illustration. I didn't work for anyone. I worked for myself. I felt confident enough to find my own clients. I felt confident enough to actually do the project, and then I felt confident enough to have my work published and be proud of it. And while I was in Chicago, I tried really hard to get in the Chicago Tribune. That was like the number one thing that I was trying to get in because it had more eyes. Everyone read the paper in Chicago, everyone. So I figured if I could get my work in the Tribune, then I'll have more eyes on my work, and then here we go. So for 2 years I tried, never got it. Never got one illustration in, never got a phone call, nada. I reached out to my friend, who was also an illustrator, and he told me what another artist did, and I thought it was really strange, and I thought it was risky. And I don't advise people to do this, but you never know. And the thing about the art world is a mystery, and I love it. So what I did was I spent a whole day. I got the theme, 2008. The theme was that there were a senator trying to transfer over a seat to fill in Obama's vacant seat. So the story was really crazy at the time. And then when you're working with illustration, you have to stay on top of worldly events. And I knew the story. I found out a little bit more by reading some of the articles. And I decided, well, let me spend a whole day I spent a whole day working on different ideas on how I'm going to take this story and create an illustration out of. And I settled on this image here. And I decided to take my friend's advice. The advice was to take my little illustration, package it really lovely, write a nice little letter, with your contact information and everything, and then send it over to the client, potential client. So I sent this image to Chicago Tribune, and waited 3 days, no answer, no phone call. The 4th day, they called me. They called me, we got your art, we love it, it fits perfectly with the story, can we use it? And that was my break. I was so excited. This was the pinnacle part of my illustration career. I was so happy. Middle of the paper, Wednesday, everyone's gonna see it. I got more phone calls off of this because of that, but I didn't get paid for it. That's the risk. But I got something published for the first time. So after doing this, I didn't realize that this world is just a little too risky for me, and it's not going to last long. Because at that time, we're converting into graphic design, and more illustrators were doing more graphic design work. And they were illustrating just basically off of Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. And I already know the programs, and I try to do illustration digitally, and it wasn't fun for me. Like I said, I love the traditional feel of art. I love the drawing, I love the painting, I love the feel, I love the texture, I love everything about it. I love experimenting, exploring different shapes, colors, ideas, and illustration wasn't doing it for me. So I started asking myself a bunch of questions. What's the subject matter? What space I'm working with? What format am I looking at? Am I using the right visual elements? Visually, does it carry a message? Do I enjoy the piece? And then all these questions I kept asking every time I was doing illustration work. It wasn't positive. So I slowly stepped away from illustration work and start doing more of fine art-based type art. So when I start doing fine art-based type art, I float in the air, not knowing what I should focus my attention on. Since I'm coming off of illustration and I'm dealing with social issues, let me start there. So I start focusing on global issues using portraits or full figures as my subject matter. A lot of the content are sad, very dark, very, very gloomy. So I use what I love to focus on, which is the color and shape, and I incorporate that into my work. So the colors, I kind of step away or try not to make things in a grayish form, try to introduce bright colors. And introduce colors that's commonly used in the surrounding areas versus, like for example, clothing if it's gray, if we're up north, United States, a lot of times the sun is not out, so it's more gray and gloomy. So I always focus on the lighting of my subject. Some subject that I was tackling, it was kind of hard to paint because I was like I was not only trying to paint to create a message, but I was also feeling kind of isolated in a way, because I was getting more involved with my subject matter. So the social issues, I would find stories on a child being abandoned, and it kind of affected me, and it kind of like deterred me from sticking with the global issue. So I slowly trying to change my content. But I stay whole to certain things, which is the rich and vibrant colors. And then I slowly introduce like loose painterly techniques and strokes, just to basically be more free with my application, and then also move away from the technical and confined way of doing things, where illustration was showing me. Every piece that I try to create, I try to tell the story with clarity. Each picture that could transcend the text. So if I'm reading an article and I'm really engaged with that article, I try to push a little bit more with the imagery. Like for instance, this child in Afghanistan, I saw a few imagery of a young child, and I read some stories of a young child being trained to create cocktail Molotovs. And I stumbled upon an image, and I was like, wow, that's something that I really want to do. And I tackled it. But what I did not know is that a lot of the kids were used as a pawn, and so all the kids that I was learning from, they didn't survive. But this picture here, I try to push it in a way that to clarify what's going on here. The background, I like loosely paint brush strokes. I introduce different colors. So it's more of an abstraction, but at the same time, it has more of a rural or decaying gravel, remote type feel to it. And then I put more focus on the image of the child and the cocktail Molotov that he's creating, so I can put more emphasis on that child. And with the background, it actually set him in a location where you know what area, what part of the world it is. I could easily just make everything back here like brown and gray, but my thirst for color helps me push the imagery a little bit more, and it actually brighten up the image so that it doesn't look so sad, doesn't look so harsh. But when you really look at the image, you kind of feel what's going on. Pushing that emotion or pushing that feeling, I was slowly understanding what fine art was really about. So then I started putting more focus on my visual process. So every project I try to tackle, I try to find my subject matter or model. This instance, I use myself as the model. While I'm doing that, then I have to analyze myself, since I'm the subject. So I would write down things. It may sound weird, but visually I would write down details of the subject. So let's say, for instance, the clothing is white, or he has patterned clothing, or he has a beard, he has a mustache, he has hair. I write all those things down, and then as I'm looking at my writing, then I can slowly come up with my concept. And then once I get my concept, then everything else falls into place. And it helps carve out my vision. So I would also use items or common elements to surround my subject matter. So for this piece right here, the name of the piece is Gardener. And it's a self-portrait. At the time, I was into urban farming, into gardening, and I decided, well, let me tackle that. It's something that relates to me, and it's something that appeals to me. And I enjoyed doing it. And so I decided, let me do a piece. So instead of working on a canvas, I decided, well, let me switch it up. Let me work on a fabric. So this is a fabric back here. I found a fabric that has like these lovely patterns on it. The fabric is actually was imported from Haiti. It was made in Haiti. It was imported from Haiti. And so when my mom brought it over, I asked, can I have pieces of it? So currently, I still have those pieces of fabric I want to use future. But I was more experimenting and see if I'm able to paint on fabric. And it was a little challenge, but I was able to do it. And my application, I was really pleased with it. It turned out the way I wanted. And then when it came to displaying or showing the piece, everyone enjoyed it. So this was a step on how can I gauge a subject matter, and then what materials can I use, and what application, medium, or how can I approach it. Those are the things I kept asking myself, and it kept me free, and I loved it. Then I started focusing on content. This piece here is the Remembrance of an Artist. It's acrylic and latex paint on canvas. It's a fairly good sized piece. I created this, I would say probably 2011, 2012. It hits everything that I was like slowly working for when it comes to going into the fine art world. I finally felt free away from the illustration world. I was happy, I was pleased. I'm doing something that I want, something that tells a story, that's something that can relate to a community, something that's have a conversation behind it. And so I chose to tackle issues, harsh issues, important issues at the time. And then my subject, I have two subject matter. I have the woman, mainly a mother or a sister or aunt, and then in her mind, a dead child or a sibling or a family member. And then with the application that I use, I continue on trying to break away from refine type work and push the abstraction in my background so that it can fight and a battle between my realistic figure in the foreground. And then I also include patterns and shapes along with this painting. And it's exactly what I wanted to do, and exactly the direction that I wanted to go into. It's bold, it's very colorful, it's not too harsh, it's not too soft, and it can relate to a lot of people. The creative process. Throughout my creative process, I go through two routes. To visually use the elements to create my vision. Through that understanding what is going on visually, and understanding how to address the message, the language of the artist, those are the two things I was tackling with. One, a representational type feel versus more of an abstraction type feel. And with that, just fighting back and forth, I was like, man, I really don't want to separate these two. Let me see if I can combine them. And then that's what I did. Instead of fighting it and fighting myself, and then trying to push this idea that I'm trying to float, it just wasn't, it wasn't right for me to try to separate it. So I chose to not separate it at all. I chose to merge them together. So I was doing representational type art and then merging it with the abstraction in the background. And that was my route. And that was the route I stick to. So by sticking to that route, I came out with this piece. This piece is fairly big. It's about 7 feet, 6 to 7 feet tall. This was the very first painting that I was doing. Well, actually, this is the second painting. No, let me take that back. I did a big painting, but it wasn't tackling what I was approaching or what I was looking for. But this was the first big painting that it was tackling everything. Very loose painterly background, very abstraction. With that abstraction, it puts more focus into the figure. And so with the figure, I push and I pull. I wanted to be realistic, but then I let it go a little bit. I want to add multiple colors on his outfit, but I pull back on a little bit because I didn't want to separate it from the background. The more you push for realism, the more you tend to forget of what you actually are looking for. And I wasn't looking for realism, but I was looking for the in-between. The story about this piece, this is a painting of my brother. I had this white Ford F-150 at the time. It was very old, over 200 miles. It was acting funny. You know? It's like, I told my brother, it's like, hey, I think I need oil. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. Never was a car guy. I don't think I ever will be a car guy. But since my brother used to work with pipes in the Navy, it's very easy for him to work on the car. So I told him, hey, I think I need to change the oil. Can you help me out? He's like, oh, yeah, let me help you out. He came outside with this big old jumpsuit. I'm like, wait a minute. Where's this jumpsuit coming from? And so he was underneath he's underneath my truck. He's fixing it. He comes right back out. You say, yeah, the oil change. Starts it up. Car was same thing. I was like, hey, this jumpsuit for nothing? I mean, my car's not working. It's like, yeah, let me call my friend. He called his friend, the real mechanic. The real mechanic, mechanic number 2, is actually, this is a second painting. This is the first one. Mechanic number 2 came along, and then he said, like, oh, yeah, let me take a look at it. And I told him, well, it's not the oil. I know, my brother just changed it. It's like, oh, let me check the engine. Check the engine. He just did one thing. He just poured a gallon of water in my engine, and all the water flew right underneath the truck. I was like, yeah, what's going on? You unplugged something? It's like, no, you got a hole in your engine. And I was like, well, how come the mechanic number 1 didn't tell me this? It's like, well, he's not a real mechanic. That's why you got me here. So my brother gave me this look. It's like, you got a hole in your engine? And you had me spend an hour changing the oil. It was a waste of time. I'm just going to say it's a big waste of time. So he gave me a look. The real mechanic gave me an even nastier look. And I happened to have my camera at the time. And I just snap. And I told him, hey, I'm not a car guy. So there's a story behind this piece. It's a very vibrant and beautiful colors in the background. But then the facial expression gives you a different feel. It's very sarcastic. It's not mean. It's not malicious. It's just like, are you serious type look, you know? And I was able to capture that. You know, he has a wrench in his hand. And I think it's funny because I never seen this jumpsuit after that. I thought it was funny. It's like, well, let me do a painting of it because I would never see that jumpsuit again. So painting number 1 is my favorite. Painting number 2 is even better because the facial expression on him, I don't have the painting with me, but the facial expression on him was even better. So this painting is here. I'm not sure if they hung it, but it is here. So at the end, we can take a look at it. With this painting is also, there's different layers. You cannot see it, but there is layers. It's mixed media, so it's a combination of latex paint, acrylic paint. I use resin. I use mono in place. I use compound that I use for construction. And it all is glued onto a vinyl. I chose vinyl because it's very flexible. It can handle everything that I put on top of it. Like the surface, if you feel the surface, is very rough. And it's slowly peeling away, but I wanted that. I reinforced it with glue just to keep the roughness still there, but if you feel it, it has a rough. So there's some slick areas. There's some really painterly areas. There's some areas you can even see on the vinyl. So there's a combination of drawing, painting, and what I consider sculpture because I'm working with different surfaces, all in this one painting. And then from there, I was like, well, then I could just push myself even more. So instead of sticking with traditional way of doing portraits, let me play around with the imagery. So once again, I use myself as the subject matter, and I decide to create a portrait of, you may say split personality, but my split personality is not that serious. There's a calmness to me, and then there's a little wildness to me. So I was able to capture that, and then the same approach. If you actually see this painting real life, there's actually a rough, it looks like a concrete wall. Like I really actually like slowly painted and try to push the realism and then also pull back and let the abstraction push through. So there's a lot of play to it. And it was fun. It was really fun to make. So I started off with a background, playing around, just throwing paint on the background so I can really build the surface to it. And then I start throwing in some bright colors. Then I went into doing the drawing. So there was several references I was going by. So I took a bunch of photos, different angles, different positions, different lighting. And I stumbled upon 2 images that really worked for me. I merged them together. This is where I introduced the computer into my painting process. So I was able to manipulate the photo in a way so that I can like have this type of effect. And then I transfer that drawing, the concept onto the canvas, and then I went off doing the painting. And this is the direction that I was going. This is the direction that I was gearing myself towards. And then I pivot. So at the time, mural was becoming big here in Miami. And being here, meeting a lot of different artists, running into a lot of peers, it seemed like everyone was doing murals. I ran into a poet, he was doing a mural. I was like, how is that happening? So then I just pivot. I stepped away from canvas and I went into the mural route. I didn't want to miss out. I felt that if I didn't do it, I will miss out. And it was something that I definitely did not want to miss out on, especially with the wave that was going on and a little bit still going on here in Miami. I decided to go that route. And as I was doing that route, I was noticing from other artists and other work that wasn't noticeable in my work is the consistency. So I noticed that I was evolving, I was changing, I was trying to push my ideas, I was like improving my visual elements, but then I decide, well, I started asking myself questions like, if I continue on doing gallery work, continue on displaying work, how is that going to fulfill me artistically? How is that going to fulfill me financially? And then how can I grow and expand from that? And with the fine art field, there are options on growing, but then it takes time to do it. It takes time to develop, and then it also takes time to get your name out there. And I realized that, and it would be a slow process for me. And that's why I decided to do murals, because it's out there in the open. It's like a big old wall with your art on it. It's an easy advertisement. Like, everyone's gonna see it. Family members, friends, people from outside the country. And that's why I decided to, let me go the mural route. I still continue on doing some commission work, but I stepped away from doing my personal stuff. And it kind of, I wouldn't say I made a wrong mistake. I just would say that it's going to take me some time to get to where I need to go. And by me doing that pivot, it kind of slowed me down a bit. I kind of step away from what I was pushing myself. And then with doing murals, a lot of the murals, like a lot of the ideas are from the clients, from the owners. And so kind of ironic, when I was stepping away from illustration, trying to get into the fine art world, and now I'm taking a step back and doing the illustration stuff, which I did not want to do. But by talking to peers and like looking at other artists do their thing, it's like, well, I don't really have to gear my work towards the client or owner. I can kind of create something on my own. And so I don't feel too bad going the mural route. I could continue doing the same thing consistently, but then I have to kind of merge them together as I was doing with my art. So I'm in the process of trying to merge what I'm doing with the mural work with scale and size and space, and then trying to merge what I'm doing with my canvas work with elements, with the application, and the message. And in order to expand as an artist, in order to show work in like these prestigious places, to continue on growing as a muralist, you have to merge your work together. Like it makes no sense to try to separate yourself. Everything that you do, versus if it's in the studio or if it's outdoors, like they do relate to each other. They do talk to each other. There's a language there that you have to push, you have to focus on, and you have to stay on it. And you constantly have to repeat the same messages, but then you can do it in a different way, but it's the same message. Like the artists, the more established artists right now, and the artists that I'm following, they're doing canvas work. They're doing sculpture at the same time. They're doing video production. They're doing photography, and they all relate to each other. And this is where I am right now. Just understanding my language and understanding what I really need to do to become a successful artist. I'm not saying I'm not successful, but it's not where I want to be. And right now I feel that I'm not where I want to be, and I want to continue pursuing and get there. So questions to self is, what makes my work relevant today? And visually, what story I'm telling. That's what I'm doing right now. So I pivot, I'm doing murals now. And I'm not doing small ones. I'm doing big ones. I'm just like, oh, okay. But the bigger they are, the more difficult they can be. So I took the basic approach, how I would tackle painting, and I put it onto the wall. And working on wall, it's a lot challenging because you don't have your format on a table and you're leaning over. Your format's right here in front of you, and you're going up and down. You're not going back and forth. So it was difficult. It was difficult for me to transfer small little drawings or concept into a larger scale. I was trying to figure it out. I figured it out, by doing it, measuring it out, and mathematically putting my work up there. And then as I'm working on this one particular mural, I noticed a few little challenges along the way. Number one, I'm not doing what I was doing the year before this. I'm still doing two-dimensional, but it's more graphic form. And it was a little challenging because when the city of North Miami approached me about the project, they knew I grew up in the area. They knew that I was an artist, but they wanted me to do something. And I was like, well, here's my work. Here's what I'm working on. This is the direction I'm going. So a lot of the work is more in the fine art realm, but they weren't looking for that. They didn't want me to do any realism at all. They did not want me to do any abstraction. They wanted we want to have a piece to relate to everyone, but we want to simplify it. So how I approached this was I chose common colors. So they repainted the surface. So I matched the colors, and I used what they normally would have as far as the logo, and then I threw it on my concept. And then, as I was showing them, I was really honest. It's like, well, this is kind of bland to me. Like, at first it was just blue, red, and white. It's like, this is not gonna stick out. It's not a representation of this area. The area is in the city of North Miami, and the area is predominantly black. And so the director just basically told me, just do what you can, but stick with the concept. So since I was focused on shape and color, I decided, let me just flip the colors around. So I threw in African colors. Colors you see in African flags. That's just like that subtle thing that I added, it just blew them away. It's like, yeah, this is our community. I was like, all right, I'm glad. So that led to us being published on the magazine. So it was a great thing. Like the city loved it. They even gave me a proclamation for it. And the whole project was supposed to take 2 weeks. But since this was my first big, long mural, and it was raining and hot at the same time, it took a month to do. They wasn't really concerned about that. They just wanted it done. So as I was doing it, I also gave them the idea, hey, we need to get the community involved. Like, this makes a great, I was playing politics, this makes a great photo op. Get the newspapers in here, get the mayor, commissioners in here, get the kids right next to you, take a photo. And they bid it. So they had the kids come over one day, and I had help. I was like, perfect. I helped these kids, I pushing them. Only 2 out of these kids wanted to be an artist. And after that day, they decided not to do art because they realized it was just too hot. It was just too hot. And I was like, this part of the challenges you have to face when you're working with murals. So this was an awesome experience. I understood politics when it comes to art. I understood myself too. I can easily go back and forth from realism to very graphic work. And I'm very proud of that. That shows my range. And it shows that I'm open to a lot of things. And it also shows that I'm still an illustrator. So I'm here. From there, really quick, yeah.
Yeah, if you could have painted whatever you wanted, what would you have painted?
I wanted to do more of, I wanted to do realistic, but I wanted action. So I wanted a backhand, you know, a big blow up of a figure doing a backhand. And all you see is the ball and the racket, but you see the legs and the arm. So, you know, kind of create a very large scale action type hero. That's what I wanted. I wanted to turn the tennis court into an action field because they were, what they really wanted to do, they wanted to push registration for kids to, you know, participate in tennis. And so what I really wanted to do something really awesome that they had no choice but to step on the court and to, you know, play tennis. But, you know, when you work with multiple peoples and you're working with the city, there are things, there are limitations, and I had to follow by. I had to go through. Yeah. Really quick? All right. Okay, all right. So this piece right here, actually, I was commissioned through Yuval Yo Miami. He's the founder of Yo Miami, and he called me up about this piece here. I was a little confused on the project, but then when I slowly found out about what was going on inside, I thought it was amazing. There was an event that went on during Art Basel, and they wanted to turn this warehouse into a display event space. And so they had Haitian artists from United States. They had Haitian artists from the actual island, and they all came in South Florida that one night, and it was amazing to see so many different artists in different disciplines, and all related to my culture, all in one space, and everyone was just wowed by the mural I created. And at the time, I wasn't really wowed about it. I mean, you know, it's a nice picture. But then afterwards, when I was getting the feedback from the audience, then I was like, oh, I never saw it this way. Oh, I never saw it this way. And so I loved it a little bit more. The inside was even better because I was taking a space and try to figure out a way to continue what I had outside and then throw it in the inside area. And it worked out really well. And I got a lot of feedback from this. It's no longer there. They actually tore the building up. But I got a lot of feedback from that. This piece is here in Liberty City. I did it 2023. And just taking a business. They do takeouts. They do groceries. And I was commissioned through an organization to do a mural piece along this wall. It took me, this was during December, so it took me 3 weeks to do because of the weather. And that's the thing with doing murals, you always have to work around the weather. The sun, I don't mind, as you can see. But the rain, I cannot handle the rain because once your paint gets wet, that's it. You're done for the day. And so just taking the idea, the concept, getting my references, setting it up in a way that, that it's legible and also it's really large and towering. The wall is about 18 feet high, 18, 20 feet high. So these figures are really massive. And then try to keep the color consistent, kept my palette limited because the time given, and then also the massive scale of this, like this is really big, and then having fun with it. So I just didn't want to do food. It's like, let's do a variety of people. Everyone's doing their own thing and, you know, just showing the work. So that was fun. That was fun. And then this last year, which is located here. Afterwards, you can guys go take a look. This piece I was commissioned through the Hub Miami. There was another artist who brought me into the project, and he told me the theme. The theme was we were supposed to have a combined landscaping, urban landscaping, and then also combine rural together. And we want a Haitian themed type art. And so I was like, man, that's pretty broad. So I did what I normally do, is just take small little elements, put them together. I chose a color palette that I was comfortable with. I wanted to be rich in color, rich in green. I wanted to show some action to it. And then I also want to have you placed in a setting that as if you were in the piece, in the painting, and you're traveling down the terrace or traveling down the hill along with the residents. And so I was really pleased about this piece. Actually, this piece means a lot to me, not only because I'm doing it here, but also this was the last mural project that my mom seen before she passed away. And this was last December. And she was so proud of me. And it was so hard to watch her deteriorate and to paint this. And so I try to push it in a way that not only that it's great for the space, but also that it's something that relates to my family and also relates to me personally, because it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's something that my mom, my number one fan, was passionate about, and she was so happy that I was continue doing it, and I'm still doing it to this day. So, so this piece, you can view it afterwards here at the space. This is 2 rooms down. Where I'm at right now, my growth, where I'm going. So I said earlier, I did a pivot to mural, but now since I had the knowledge on doing things in a grand scale, very broad, big, I can do big paintings. I can do Rembrandt style paintings, which I really wanted to do. But then I also want the paintings to relate to me. So the application, the way I was doing the paintings, my vision, it remains the same. But then I wanted to add a few more things. I grew up in Opa-locka. If you're not familiar with Opa-locka, Opa-locka is an old town. It's a historical town. And a lot of those structures there is like a Moorish style type structure. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in that environment. The city hall at the time, right now they should be open, but they were renovating it for the past few years. But at the time when I was younger, this fountain and this Moorish style type art, mosaic tiling, was my favorite part of that whole facility. Water never came out of this fountain since I was a kid. Till this day, water is still not coming out of this fountain, you know? I guess they were trying to mimic the same Versace fountain that's in Miami Beach, but it didn't work. So since I grew up in Opa-locka, I'm used to seeing mosaic tiling. Those design elements, it kind of like reinforce of what I want to do. I want to work with shapes, continue to work with shapes. I continue want to work with colors. I want to push my color in a way that I'm actually creating the color black, and I want to name it after my last name. So it's a black that has a bluish tone, a reddish tone, and a brown tone. It's weird to explain, but when you apply it, you can see the colors, but when you step back, it's black. So that's how passionate I am about colors. So I want to use the design elements of mosaic tiling, incorporate that into my work. I also want to use certain arches, Moorish style type arches into my work. I want to push the figures. I want to continue playing around with overlaying, continue playing around with abstraction, blending back and pushing back and forth against the figures. I want to continue doing that. And this route that I'm going into is going to take my work to the next level. I feel it's going to take my work to the next level. Reason for that is just of what I've gained and what I've learned over time and what I'm capable of. Now it's just a matter of time and space to create my art. So this is the vision and direction that I'm trying to go into. I also want to include Art Deco style type elements into my work. You know, since we're here in Miami, I was born here. I'm always in Miami Beach. I love Art Deco. I love the pastel colors. I love the architecture, and I want to incorporate that because I want to be a Miami artist. If you're looking at my work, you look at it, you see the colors, you see the shapes, you see the content. Oh, this guy is from somewhere that's not cold, somewhere that's not maybe exotic, somewhere that that's festive or vibrant in colors, a lot of energy, but still bold and tough. That's the direction I want to get into, and that's the direction why I'm hoping to tackle, and I'm getting there. It's just takes some time. And so, with that said, thank you, everyone.